Welcome back to Beer Fueled Fantasy Football, guys. Hope you guys are ready for another episode. We got to recap everything that's happened for you guys here in Week 10. A couple surprises. Looking at you, Bills. A couple things that went as we expected. Looking at you, Bears. And we'll go ahead here and recap everything that happened in the Week 10 games. We are missing Dan Thury on this episode. Work got in the way for him yet again, so tweet at him, ThuryBFF, if you guys want to harass him for not being on the show for another episode. But Hopper and I are here for you. Hopper, say hello from St. Louis. Did you turn your mic off again or something?
It's a little snowy down here, so just kind of trying to hole up, stay warm, not cry about the Stan Lee thing, cry a lot, etc.
All right, you can find him at HopBFF with 2 P's if you want to find him on Twitter. I'm at Nick Sparts. You can follow the show at BeerFueledFF.
Did I forget my line?
You did, or cut out one of the two. You suddenly went quiet for a moment.
Yeah, we've got some instability going on right now, I think. You've been coming in pretty break it up also, but this laptop, when I first started, is sometimes wonky, so I'm sure that'll stabilize.
All right, hopefully the processor figures itself out.
It's a disk utilization most of the time. I don't know why it's done it since I got it.
All right, Beerfueled FF is where you can find the show for Twitter, Instagram, and Untapped. Beerfueled Fantasy Football, YouTube, and Facebook. If you want to hit the subscribe button and come ask us questions on the live show, do it there. We generally go live between about 5:45 and 6 o'clock Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Sunday mornings is going to be about 10:30 a.m. for all your start-sit questions. Those are all Central Time as well. If you want to help out the show, a couple ways you can do that. You can like and drop comments on our YouTube videos, drop reviews on iTunes. That helps boost the visibility of those platforms. Or if you want to spend some money to help out the show even more, go ahead and tweet at BeerfueledFF, or I should say DM BeerfueledFF, or email beerfueledfantasy@gmail.com, and either hit us up to send us beer from a place that we don't normally travel to. We'd like to get some new beer on the show that we can't get in our region. Go ahead and hit us up for merchandise. We've got shirts and hats available for you guys. And lastly, we do have a Patreon up if you guys want to help support the show that way. All three are very much appreciated. But before we go through and get through all the news, injuries, waiver wires, and of course recapping every single Sunday game, we gotta let you know what beer's fueling us this week. Beer fuel. And I actually should say this episode since we do 3 episodes a week. On today's episode, we've got Virtue Cider's Michigan Brut. I believe, is that how it's pronounced, or is it Brew?
Brut?
Brut?
I don't know. Sure.
Virtue Cider's based out of Fenville, Michigan. First time we've had them on the show. I grabbed 3 ciders for the fall here just because I wanted a little bit of a breakup, and it's kind of the best time of year to do ciders. Michigan Brut is a barrel-aged dry farmhouse cider. Sits in at 6.7% ABV. Drop a full review of that once we're through recapping the noon games. But before we go ahead and get to the game recaps, got a little news for you guys. News. All right, and Hopper, you are my eyes on questions, so just let me know when we get any of those.
Will do.
First up, we do have Ryan Fitzpatrick will remain the Bucs starter for Week 11 against the Giants. They are sticking with Fitzpatrick over Winston for now, at least.
Yeah, I don't know that that's the right move, but sure, it's the Bucs. They'll change it again before the end of the year.
Probably at least once.
Yeah.
All right, everyone's favorite preseason darling, C.J. Anderson, has been released by the Panthers.
Yep, his tweet was no love lost, so I'm assuming he's not happy with the franchise, but C.J. Anderson was a relatively productive back last year that landed there, I think, more of an as an insurance policy to CMC, and then when CMC performed better than I think most people expected as a runner and between the tackles guy and an every down back, he became expendable.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised they didn't keep around just in case CMC got hurt, because it can happen still, but...
Yeah, as an insurance policy?
I mean, he was on a pretty cheap deal, too, but there must have been some... Maybe he was becoming a locker room issue or something, and they just said, get the fuck out.
He seemed disgruntled, and I don't necessarily blame him, so...
I think he was expecting more of a role than he ended up getting.
I think everybody was expecting him to have more of a role than he ended up getting.
All right. Saints signed Brandon Marshall to a 1-year contract, so get those hype trains rolling on Brandon Marshall.
I guess. I don't know if you can hype train this any more than Dez was hype trained. So they haven't used secondary wide receivers all year.
Nope. I'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the Saints game. Don't normally talk about defensive players, but this is a big one. Falcons activated middle linebacker Deion Jones from injured reserve designated to return, so he should be back in Week 11. That is a big boost to their run defense.
They needed a big boost to some part of their defense, too. So good to see Deion Jones coming back. And, passing, well, this is still going to be rough for Atlanta. But
yeah,
run defense might be better.
Doesn't help the secondary, but it does help the middle of the field at least. So maybe slight boost to their pass defense, but their run defense at least should get a nice bump here.
Right.
And then last note is Bengals coach Marvin Lewis is taking over defensive coordinator responsibilities following the firing of Terrell Austin after they just got thwacked by the Saints.
Right before we sat down, I saw a rumor that they may be bringing Hugh Jackson back.
That wouldn't help the defense, to my knowledge. He was an offensive guy.
I know he was, so I don't know what putting him back on the staff is going to do, but that was thrown around. So
Dalton had his best year under Jackson, didn't he?
Right.
So maybe it helps the offense slightly, but
yeah,
I don't think it's going to do much.
I've got a wild idea for the Bengals. Fire the head coach.
Yeah, seriously. But yeah, they set an NFL record of 3 straight games with over 500 yards allowed, which is just insane.
Well, the defense wasn't good last year either. So, I mean, how much are you going to keep churning defensive coordinators, especially when you supposedly have a defensive-minded head coach?
Yeah,
before you realize that the problem's deeper than that.
And they have some very nice pieces on that defense too. The sum of its parts is not equaling up to what we're seeing on the field here.
No, it's not. And it didn't last year. So at what point do you look beyond the defensive coordinators? Because if you're turning defensive coordinators like that, I think this is 3 in 3 years.
Then 3 and 4 maybe. I think since Zimmer left, they've churned through 3 of them.
Right. So you got to look at it and say, okay, well, what's the common denominator here? Because it's not the defensive coordinators. Not that I'm a big Terrell Austin truther, but you get it.
All right. Well, with that covered, let's go ahead and recap what's happened in the games this week. We've got some absolute duds, so we're going to try to burn through those quickly, and then some more interesting ones, which we'll spend a little bit more time on. And since it's just the 2 of us, maybe we'll try to do a bit more of a discussion topic, especially with Dan's games. But first up, we got to do the drop.
Weekly preview.
And that was the wrong drop, but I like it anyway, so shout out Hopper for making all the drops for us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
What the hell happened?
There we go.
I got a couple seconds in, and I'm like, wait, that's not right. And then it's like, whatever. I want to hear the whole thing.
I was going to say, you could have stopped it, right?
I do know I could have stopped it. But what the hell happened? And the first game we're going to start talking about is really a what the hell happened. Redskins win this game 16-3. The Buccaneers had over 500 yards of offense and did not score a touchdown. It's just the second time since 1970 that's even fucking happened.
I don't know how this game ended up this low scoring. I was watching it, and I looked up, and it was like 6-3 at halftime, and I was like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, I was Jen was, because I was driving down to St. Louis, so my girlfriend was literally reading off scores to me as we're driving and like telling me who scored and stuff. And then she kept going back to the Redskins Buccaneers game. She's like, "Oh, somebody kicked a field goal." I'm like, "How are they just kicking field goals?"
Yeah, I had no idea how that was happening.
But yeah, basically on the Redskins side, Alex Smith didn't do anything, but he didn't have to because the Buccaneers could not score points. It was 178 yards and 1 touchdown on about 30 attempts. He didn't look good, but he hasn't at all this season.
Yeah.
This offense did just enough, and the defense carried the rest.
This game script went sideways, and that hasn't happened to us a whole lot this year, I don't think. I don't know if we've just gotten better at it or if things are playing out more to script.
Well,
but this one went sideways.
If I looked at the yardage totals and not the points, I would be like, okay, this game played out exactly as I expected it to. But the touchdowns weren't there.
Yeah, the points weren't there.
So it was just a weird one. Peterson did get fed the ball in the lead, so the game script was not what we were expecting. We thought they might have to get away from him if they fell behind early. And with the yardage that the Buccaneers had, that's what should have happened. But yeah, he was at 3.6 yards per carry. The banged-up offensive line is starting to rear its head here. Peterson is a trade candidate for me. Like, I want out if I can get value for him right now.
Yeah, and he still looked okay. He was making some people miss and throwing some people off, but just with Peterson in general, the explosiveness doesn't look like it's there. Like, the vision is still there, the agility seems to be, but the acceleration isn't there from what I can tell.
Yeah, he's having a tougher time taking it to the house. I know he's been dealing with 3 or 4 nagging injuries, too, on top of the banged-up offensive line, and it just kind of all coming to a head.
And that could be it. He looked like a more agile Derrick Henry, basically.
Yeah, that doesn't take a lot.
Yeah.
Harris, Reed, and Doxson were the focus of the passing game. Each had 4 to 5 catches, about 50 yards. Doxson caught you the touchdown. But the issue is just there's not enough firepower in this passing game to really trust these guys down the stretch.
The offense doesn't have enough firepower in general. Adrian Peterson, the corpse of, he's a fine piece for your offense still, but he's not going to carry an offense like he did in Minnesota. You don't have the pass catchers. Reed is a shell of himself. Doxson's never panned out. And Alex Smith is not the quarterback that's going to lead an aerial attack for you.
Yeah, I mean, if Alex Smith was a better passer, Harris, Reed, Doxson might be a better trio, and there might be some fantasy viability there, but there just isn't.
He's not the type of quarterback that makes his wide receivers better.
No, he's not. Defense had a great game. 4 turnovers, 2 sacks, only allowed 3 points, with a lot of help from the Buccaneers on that side. But, so yeah, hats off to the defense, and everyone else was highly disappointing. On to the Buccaneers, where Fitzpatrick gave you the worst 400-plus yard passing performance ever. No touchdowns, 3 turnovers.
Yep. Welcome to Bizarro world, I guess.
And Barber gave you an okay day, 61 yards and 13 carries. So the efficiency was there against a good run defense, but he's just not getting enough touches and enough high leverage plays to matter.
Not in this one.
The one to highlight
that defense plays.
The one to highlight though is Jacquizz Rodgers had 102 receiving yards for some reason.
I'm not chasing that stuff.
I'm not either. It just was. I saw that stat. I'm like, the hell happened here?
And with Deion Jones being back for the Falcons, being back for the Falcons, I'm not going to chase that for the next couple teams that play the Falcons either.
Well, this is the Redskins, but
oh, never mind.
I was like, what does Deion Jones have to do with anything?
I have no idea. I'm in the wrong world right now.
All right. Evans gave you another disappointing game, 3 for 51 on 6 targets. Godwin Jackson actually out-targeted him. Godwin giving you the best game of all, was catching all 7 of his for 103 yards. Jackson caught, I believe it was 4 for 56 on 8.
Yeah, I'm going to find a way to tie the Falcons into this too, I think. Julio Jones. No, just kidding. Every time I looked up, it seemed that Evans was kind of doing something, but not really. His efficiency's been way down. And Godwin and Jackson, sure, but there's not touchdowns. It really just drives everybody down in this offense.
Yeah, because you're not going to trust Godwin to give you 100 yards week in and week out.
No, Godwin's thing is usually about 50 to 60, and then you hope he catches a touchdown.
Yep. And then Howard...
It's like Juju last year.
Yeah, exactly. Howard just laid an egg. 1 catch for 15 yards on 2 targets. There should be better days ahead. This is by far his worst game of the season.
It's a throw-out game for everything, I think.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, not the Redskins. They're about as I expected them to be, but it's a throw-out game for the Bucs.
Yep, definitely a throw-out game for the Bucs. There's going to be a few of those.
It's their worst one of the year for their offense.
Oh, far and away.
Even Winston throwing 4 picks was not that bad.
All right, I'll take the Dan games here. So we're going to do Bills versus the Jets next. Bills win this one 41-10 for some fucking reason. Like, this game was out of hand by about 7 minutes into the game. It was already 20-0.
It was 13-0 when I looked away towards some other games, and I turned back and it was 31-0, and I had no idea how the hell it happened.
It was multiple big plays, defensive touchdowns. It was all just out of control. Barkley played the best game of his career, 15 of 25, 232, two touchdowns, no picks. They get a bye week, and then it should be Josh Allen back to get the Jaguars.
I'm actually going to vet that because I feel like he did that a couple times when he was starting for the Bears too, like the Josh McCown season.
I'm not sure it was ever that nice. He had a couple games where it was like, hey, maybe there's something here, but I don't remember it ever being like, hey, that was actually a decent fantasy performance.
362 and 2. against Green Bay.
Any picks or no?
3 picks.
Okay.
2 and 5 picks. So efficiency-wise, it was 316, 3 and 2 against Tennessee when he was with the Bears. Like, he's done this before. The interceptions were down, which looked like they were what plagued him when he was starting with the Bears. But these yardage totals for Barkley, just because I have it pulled up right now, and the last time in 2016, which is the last time we got any meaningful playing time, 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. And then 362, 2 and 3, 323, 2 and 5. He can move an offense with no wide receivers because that's what he was doing in Chicago that year. I just didn't expect it to happen for the Bills when he just came off the street this week.
Yeah, it was impressive, though the Jets defense is apparently in total disarray here.
Right.
If you were drafting McCoy, you finally got the performance out of him you were hoping for. 26 carries, turned that into 113 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Comes back after the bye with the Jags, but then he gets the Dolphins and then the Jets in weeks 13 and 14. So, hey, you may have a couple startable McCoy games ahead of you.
Yeah, you might, actually. He looked pretty good in this, and it was all of that to me is just a byproduct of the fact that they were able to get the passing game going a little bit and open things up. They're able to utilize him in it also, though.
Yep, and then shout out to Dan, who did say keep an eye out for Zay Jones this week because he's actually did pretty well here. 11 targets, caught 8 for 93 and a touchdown. And as you and as Hopper mentioned on Sunday, he's a prime third-year breakout target. So if you can buy him for cheap in Dynasty, he's not a bad kind of pick up and hold and see what the hell happens in this team over this offseason.
No, he's not. He's coming along pretty nicely. He's been the victim of some bad quarterback play, but he's getting targeted and he's being more efficient with them than he was last year.
His catch rate is way up from last year.
Hard to not, yeah. It's 62.7, which is actually pretty respectable for a wide receiver versus the 35.5 it was last season.
Yeah, it's almost doubled. He is the one on this team now. He's easily past Benjamin.
Yeah, he is, and he's always had the talent to be. And I don't know if it was obviously from the fact that he tried to jump out of a window naked, I think it was probably a mental thing. But if he's right, he's had the talent to do this. He was kind of a DJ Moore light type of talent last year is how I would phrase it. I mean, you would agree with that, right, Nick?
Yeah, definitely. I saw a lot of similarities in their tape.
Yeah, they were both good route runners that had solid hands, were used a lot in the shallow to intermediate game in college. So if he can keep doing this, he's a guy that I want as a throw-in piece in dynasty trades to just kind of hold on to because I think he can take a step in the right direction and be a third-year breakout.
Might be a piece to try to get as a throw-in on a bigger trade, too.
Exactly.
All their pass catchers basically didn't do much. Benjamin and Pryor didn't catch a pass on 3 targets each. Robert Foster was the only other receiver who really did anything.
I looked up and I'm like, who is it? Foster? Who the fuck is Foster?
Yep. Defense, though, if you desperation started them like I did on the league, gave you a great day. 2 picks, 3 sacks, 10 points allowed, had a defensive touchdown. That's about all you can ask for out of a day. The Bills' defense would be awesome if their offense didn't continually let them out to dry.
Yeah, the defense is fine. The offense just doesn't have anything going for them, and it reminds me a lot of the Bears of a couple of years ago. Just as a Bears fan, it's easy to compare things, but it's exactly what they were. The defense was solid.
Yep.
Not otherworldly, but solid, but the offense was just nothing.
Another similarity would be the Cardinals this year, too, are in a similar situation.
Yep, where the defense is solid, but the offense is just in a weird place.
Can't get out of its own way and leaves the defense out to dry.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting to watch those two teams over the next couple of years as they retool that offense. The Bills have a nice young defensive player in Tremaine Edmonds to build around.
Tre'Davious
White. So I think that if they can get some pieces on offense, that they can compete in years to come. You just got to put some things around Josh Allen and hope that he develops well.
Yep. McCowan, just absolute trash in this one to the point where I don't even want to talk about it. Let's go to the running game where Crowell technically gave you the best fantasy day, 7 for 19 and 1 on the ground, saved his day, had caught both of his targets for 18 yards, but that was about it. The better performer, I think, was McGuire, 9 total touches, 57 yards on those. So he's actually looked like the better producer in back-to-back weeks here. I think he's the back I'd like to own the most. And Cannon is still around just to frustrate you. 5 touches for 35 yards.
Yeah, I think so too. McGuire's, as you mentioned, Nick, is the biggest note here, performing decently on limited touches against a pretty solid run defense. That was good to see from him.
Yep. And then Herndon continues to be the best receiver on the team. Caught 3 of 34 on 4 targets. No one really did anything, but at least he was continued to be the leading receiver on the team.
Yep.
And
didn't get you the touchdown though.
No touchdown. Couldn't get you 60 yards. But hey,
that's still a floor game.
Sometimes that's what you take for a tight end. It's better than a dud like Njoku or somebody else gave you.
Yep.
All right, let's move on then to Cardinals at the Chiefs, where the Chiefs win this one 26-14. Lowest scoring game of the Chiefs on the year.
Yeah, it was. And they didn't really have to go out and sling it, though. We'll start with the Cardinals. Rosen underperformed in this one, which is a big reason for that. The Chiefs' deep pass defense does continue to improve. They're kind of trending like the Steelers are, just slower. But just 208 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions for Rosen. He's been sacked more than 4 times in every game, and I think this goes back to what we saw from him in college, which is when he's under pressure, he doesn't do well.
Mm-hmm.
When he has to move, he doesn't throw well, and it all falls apart for him. And he's had no time, which I think is why he has looked bad. David Johnson, though, this is exactly what you were hoping to see from David Johnson. The second game under the new offensive coordinator where he's actually gotten touches and performed. He carried the ball 21 times for 98 yards and a touchdown. Also caught 7 of his 9 targets for 85 and a touchdown. It's exactly what you were hoping for from him. It's, weirdly a Christian McCaffrey type performance, but it's what you wanted when you drafted him.
All right. Quick update on the previous Hugh Jackson note. He is in Cincinnati to join the staff. They don't know what exactly his role will be.
Good. Fitzgerald had 10 targets. He caught 6 for 50 yards. Christian Kirk had 6 targets. If Fitz keeps getting double-digit targets, he's going to be kind of a rest of season wide receiver 3 floor type guy because of the target volume, I think.
Yeah, it's not efficient targets, but you'll take 10.
No, you'll take double digits, though. And then RSJ, he had 9 targets for a season high, 5 for 51. So just keep an eye out on that volume. He's a watch list guy for tight ends that if he does this, has multiple weeks in a row where he's getting looks, then you might consider picking him up for the long haul.
Yeah, if you're
on a team that's void of pass catchers.
Yeah, if you're, for example, a Kelsey owner looking at a Week 12 bye, it might be somebody to look at.
Yeah, but don't go run out and run it yet. As for the Chiefs, Mahomes, he was efficient, but it's a floor performance for him. 249 yards of 21 and 28 passing, just 2 touchdowns. Not the normal week, still not bad, but he didn't have to be. The Chiefs were firmly in control of this one. Kareem Hunt came back to earth. He did have 96 total yards, but no touchdowns. Again, this is just a product of the Chiefs kind of controlling the game. They played from ahead, so he didn't have to get as involved in the passing game. They didn't just move the ball as well, even though it was a plus matchup as a running back. He was efficient, but there were just, not a whole lot to be had here.
Mm-hmm.
Tyreek Hill performed with no Watkins. He saw 10 targets, snapped up 7 of them for 117 yards, 2 touchdowns, and played cameraman in his celebration. This is a huge day he's capable of every week. No other wide receiver on this team had more than 4 targets. So just good to see Tyreek Hill have a big game after a couple of kind of floor weeks.
Yeah, this is exactly why you roll him out every week, is because he can give you these boom weeks.
Do this. Exactly. And then Travis Kelce, 6 of 7, but just 46 yards. It's just proves that Kelce can still be human on occasion. That's all that is.
Yeah, and they didn't have the pedal to the metal in this game.
Didn't have to. So that's all I got.
All right, let's go to a game I'm going to spend as little time on as possible, where the Saints beat the Bengals 51-14. Bengals
stomping.
Bengals only had 7 points of offense 7 points with their first team, and it was early. On the Saints side, Breeze was just about perfect from an NFL standpoint. The only complaint you're going to have is the volume stats weren't there because he only threw the ball 25 times. 265 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 incompletions on 25 attempts.
So it's always a concern if the Saints are playing from ahead. This is what Dan and I debated about coming into the season, is what was Drew Brees going to be and what was the defense going to be.
I mean, from a fantasy aspect, though, you're going to take that 100% of the time.
You are, but it's not it's back in quarterback 1 numbers. It's not elite level numbers.
Yeah.
It's not what you were getting when he throws 35, 40 times.
Yeah, and it's also, if you saw 51 points and before you saw his fantasy score, you might be a little disappointed.
Yep.
Ingram got it right, though, in this game. 160 total yards and a touchdown. I think there are some better days ahead as some of their matchups get easier down the stretch here, and they try to protect the defense a little bit as well. And the Kamara, I'm not going to spend any time on. He gave you another 100-plus total yards and 2 touchdown days. No sign of him slowing down at all.
We got a response from Pavan. or a question or whatever if you're ready.
Sure, go ahead.
Or comments. Said, I hate Doyle. Lost this week. Galladay scored in garbage time and safe face. Was that the Doyle Reed question? Because I don't know that there was a good answer to that.
I mean, Reed gave you like 5 catches for 50 yards.
It's better. You should hit Eric Ebron like everybody on the show, but Nick does.
Nope, I'm real happy with my Eric Ebron call at the start of the year. That has been my best call this year.
Right, Galladay scoring in garbage time safe face. Yeah, it did. I can't really say much about that. I was not the one that was high on Lions wide receivers, so.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Lions were put up a little bit more of a fight than they did. That got ugly early, too.
Yep. That's your Lions offense without Golden Tate.
Well, let's go back to the Saints here, where we'll talk about the passing game, which is Michael Thomas and nobody else. He had 8 for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns on 8 targets. Not a single other receiver had more than 2 targets in this game, or more than 20 yards.
No reason to.
Traquan Smith gave you a 0.
Yep. And again, they were playing from ahead. They were ahead by a lot. It wasn't a shootout. And if you can't cover Michael Thomas, need a wide receiver for week 11. We'll have some waiver wire options coming up on the end of the show. But if you got some names that are out there on your waiver wire that you're considering picking up, let us know.
Yep.
And we can break those down for you.
And I was then Ben Watson laid an egg. I'm going to have to stop making him my start of the week because that seems to happen every single time. And then defense finally had an awesome game, but this was against a beat-up Bengals team missing an offensive lineman and their top weapon. I'm not trusting him fully yet after what we've seen this year.
Right.
For the Bengals side, basically, unless your name was Joe Mixon or Tyler Boyd, I want to burn this tape. Those two kind of made the best of a bad situation. Boyd was 3 for 65 on 4 targets, and Mixon had 85 yards and 13 touches, which is about all you can expect when they just got their ass kicked in this matchup here. Next week against the Ravens, it's another tough matchup for him. I may not be recommending a start on any single Bengal in that matchup.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Weird game. That's all I can really say about it. Weird game.
Very weird game and caused a very depressed girlfriend on my end.
Oh, well.
All right, let's move on to Jaguars versus the Colts, where the Colts pull out the win 29-16. On the Jaguars side, Bortles actually gave you a pretty decent day here, finally. 320 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no picks on 38 attempts. Didn't rush for some reason, only 8 yards, which is odd for him. Next couple matchups, though, he gets Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and Indy, so not the best slate, but there are some possible volume possibilities out of the Pittsburgh and Indy games.
Well, it just depends, too. Maybe Bortles was beat up a bit going into the bye, and he got to recover because he laid some eggs going into the bye after looking solid in the beginning of the season. Even though he hasn't shown up with the injury report, the Jags have been mum with him.
Yeah, it could be something going on there. It's also Bortles, though. He's streaky as all hell.
We got a question from Bavon. What about the Cincy defense? No new defensive coordinator. A defensive coordinator is not going to fix that in a week, and I don't want to trust it yet.
Yeah, if they're heading to their bye week, I might be a little more interested. But yeah, I don't love them.
And I talked about this in the intro a bit also. The new defensive coordinator is the head coach. It's Marvin Lewis. And the problem with that is ever since Mike Zimmer left, that Bengals defense, even though they have some of the same pieces and some nice pieces, has been kind of in a tailspin. And Marvin Lewis is the commonality there. Even though they got rid of Terrell Austin, it's like their 3rd defensive coordinator in 4 years. So and Marvin Lewis has overseen all of those as a supposed defensive head coach. So I don't think that that's the fix-all for them.
Yeah, agreed. I'm not a big fan of they're bottom 5 against all fantasy categories.
Right. And that's not something you fix with just a coordinator change. There needs to be some personnel things and stuff too.
Yep. Going to the running game where Fournette gave you 29 touches, 109 total yards, and 2 touchdowns. So the Jags coaching staff was completely truthful with us when they said they were not going to limit Fournette in any way.
Yeah. Apparently they were, and apparently Carlos Hyde is not to be worried about.
Yeah,
I guess.
I at this point, Hyde and Yeldon are handcuffs, kind of, and more bad ones at that.
Yeah, I mean, it's still Yeldon, but I mean, I guess they took some touches off of Fournette because he only had 29 instead of 39 or 40, but still.
Yeah, he gets Pittsburgh next week, which is kind of a tough matchup, but he did destroy the Steelers twice last year, so he may have a way to beat them. Yeldon had 8 touches in this one. I think Hyde had what, 3?
Yeah, we got a question from Jimmy when we get to the end of the Jaguars.
Sure. Moncrief gave you a big touchdown early for 80 yards and didn't do much after that. Finished 391 and 1 on 4 targets. Westbrook led the team with 4 targets, but only caught 5 for 30 yards. Cole had nothing. What are you doing with this passing game?
Burning it. I mean, it's Moncrief for Westbrook, and we've been saying this for a while on a week-to-week, but it's super frustrating to predict. And 3 for 98 on just 4 targets is not exactly great. Nobody's exactly getting volume here either. So, I mean, if you want to have a Moncrief for a Westbrook on your bench and you end up in an emergency situation, then sure. But it doesn't feel good, and I don't really see a scenario where you're going to willingly start those guys.
Yeah, if I'm picking one at this point, too, it's Moncrief, because even though Westbrook's been getting targets, he's not been doing fuck all with them.
No, he hasn't been.
All right, and then to James O'Shaughnessy, who finished 5 of 46 on 6 targets. Gets some okay matchups here against the Steelers in next week, and then some bad ones in the Bills and Colts again. So a possible name to consider next week if you're real desperate.
Yeah, volumes with all pass catchers is a question here, but
yep. And then for the defense, just a complete mess at this point. At this point, I'm pretty much putting them in a streamer category. So start them against the Bills in a couple weeks, but beyond that, I'm not sure I'm starting them much anymore the rest of the season.
No, I wouldn't either. It's a mess until they start to get some of that secondary back.
All right. And then what was Jimmy's question?
He said he's happy that, first off, he had a comment. He said he's happy that guy declined his offer to take Ebron for Doyle. But do we see better days ahead for Jordan Howard?
I'm not sure we do.
I don't think I do.
Team doesn't seem that interested in making sure he's fully involved, even when they're ahead. And the passing game has just gotten so effective, and he doesn't seem to really be a good fit in what they're trying to do right now.
No, I think he tried to be, but I don't know that scheme-wise that he's necessarily what they're looking for. This team is better served with I love Tariq Cohen, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't have the size to be an every down back, so he's still going to be somewhat involved. Howard is. But this team is one that's probably a better fit for a guy that's built like a Kareem Hunt or Kerryon Johnson type of player, somebody like that. Maybe one in the third round or so next year.
We may see a trade from Howard over the offseason if Nagy's not happy with him.
Yeah, or maybe he is happy with him, and maybe they are happy with the tandem, but at that point it's a tandem, and you got to adjust accordingly, which is a weekly streamer.
Yep.
Is Penny worth a pickup? Was the other question. He said Howard is a starter, unfortunately. I was going to talk about this more when we get to Seattle, but for me, I think that Seattle backfield might have become a mess again.
Yeah, unfortunately, especially because it sounds like Carson is going to be back this next week.
Right, but Penny performed and so did Davis. So I don't know that he goes back to getting 32 to 35 touches a game while he's beat up. If Frank Gore's on your waiver wire, though, that may potentially be a go-to. As weird as that is to say.
All right, now we all got on the questions?
Yeah, I'll talk more about Gore later, too, so if that's not so obscure.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about the Colts then. Luck just crushing it. Another 3-touchdown game, 1 int on 29 attempts, 285 passing yards. Is there any matchup where you're going to consider sitting Luck at this point?
No, he's a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah, it's 6 or 7 straight now with 3+ touchdowns. It's just absurd.
Yeah, there's no matchup I think that he has left where I'm gonna sit him.
And he hasn't taken a sack since week 6. This is
right.
Very unlike the Colts we used to see.
Yeah, it is.
Marlon Mack, though, unfortunately, just laid an egg for you. 12 of 29 on the ground, 2 for 9 on 2 targets through the air. So he gets a bad matchup against Tennessee next week, so we're going to be recommending benching him there as well.
Yep.
But he does get the Dolphins in week 12, so there is some sunlight on the horizon at least.
There is, and I think this game was closer than anticipated to where they couldn't just feed him the ball 20 times.
Yeah, and it looks like maybe Jacksonville sold out a little bit to stop Mack or something, because the passing game performed better than I was expecting all around. Because Hilton, who was, I believe, your sit of the week?
It was.
He even finished for 3 for 77 on 7 targets.
Not great, not terrible, pretty much.
Yeah, about what you're hoping for out of this type of matchup.
Right.
Dontrell Inman bounced up to their wide receiver 2. He was 4 of 41 on 4 targets. But it was the tight ends who saw the majority of the work. Ebron, 3 of 69 and 2 touchdowns on 3 targets and a rushing touchdown for some reason. And then Doyle was 3 of 36 on 3 targets. And then there was Mo Alley Cox, 2 of 28 and 1 touchdown on 2 targets.
He's the only thing Alley Cox has done is score 2 touchdowns. So,
but yeah, if you're a Ebron or Doyle owner, he's kind of annoying. But he actually outsnapped Ebron, so maybe he's more of a blocking tight end. I actually don't know that much about him.
Yeah, I don't know either.
So Doyle was the team lead in snaps at 86%, so he should still see some good games going forward. It just wasn't this particular one.
Weirdly.
Defense actually had a bad game here, even though it was a plus matchup. Only 1 forced turnover, no sacks, and they gave up 26 points. So you're hoping for better games going forward. But they do get Miami in Week 12, pretty meh against Tennessee and Jacksonville in Weeks 11 and 13.
Yeah. Hey, we got another question here from Pavan.
Sure.
Wants to know Trubisky or Rivers rest of season.
Oh, that's actually kind of tough. I need to check schedules for that.
I pull up the Chargers because I've got the Bears. Let me know when you're ready.
All right. Go ahead with the Bears.
All right. The Bears get the Vikings, the Lions again, the Giants, Rams, Packers, Niners in the fantasy season. So
that playoff schedule is fucking amazing for Trubisky.
Rams, Packers, Niners is great. Giants is not, and Lions are not terrible matchups. The Vikings next week is the only one that really concerns me.
All right. For the Chargers, they get let me make sure I'm looking at the right weeks here. All right. So they get the Broncos, Cardinals, Steelers, and Bengals to finish. Broncos, Chargers, Steelers to finish the regular season, and then they get the Bengals, Chiefs, and Ravens in the playoffs.
The Ravens is really the one that concerns me there.
Yeah, beyond that, I pretty much like Rivers' schedule.
Yeah. That's kind of a toss-up for me, really. The only other thing with Rivers, though, is that the volume hasn't quite been there, but not necessarily for Trubisky either. So
I think Rivers, it's kind of, do you need safety or are you looking for ceiling? Because I think Trubisky's definitely got the higher ceiling right now.
I think he does too. Rivers is a safer option. So depends on your record. If you're one of those fringe teams, I'm probably going to go Trubisky. If you're 7-1, 8-1 and in, go Rivers. And then what was the playoff matchup for the Chargers?
Bengals, Chiefs, Ravens.
Bengals, Chiefs, Ravens, and the Bears, it's Rams, Packers, Niners.
If you can hold both, even better.
Yeah, the Ravens is a bad matchup in championship week for Rivers, and that's the only thing I don't like about him.
Ideally, you'd run Rivers in weeks 14, 15, cut him, and rock Trubisky against the Niners in 16.
Yep. But if you're asking me the rest of the season, I'm a Bears fan. I'm going to say Trubisky. That's a tiebreaker for me. He's had a little bit more volume recently, too.
Yeah, and the running helps, too, so I'm going to also go Trubisky, but it's pretty close.
He's got a rushing floor, but it is really close. That was a really good question. That's thought-provoking. I like thought-provoking. But yes, the rushing floor is the other thing that helps Trubisky.
All right. And then after the Colts and Jaguars are finished up, we are moving on to Patriots versus the Titans, where the Titans just kicked the shit out of the Patriots in Nashville, winning 32-10. What the hell happened?
Well, first off, Brady fell completely flat. No touchdowns or picks, 41 attempts and just 254 yards. He's no longer a must start to me. He's a back-end quarterback one in the same vein as Matt Stafford is.
I don't think either of those players are quarterback ones anymore. Just run through 12 names in your head and tell me when you get to Brady or Stafford.
Right. There's, I think Trubisky, Goff, obviously Mahomes, all guys that have surpassed them.
Yeah,
Rivers, Roethlisberger,
Wentz.
Yeah, Wentz, Luck. No order there, but basically the point is Tom Brady's a back-end quarterback one, high-end streamer at this point, and I don't love it. He's not been Tom Brady this year.
The big thing, he's not throwing passing touchdowns. That's what you kind of need.
No, he's not, and that's a huge difference. As for the running game, this went exactly as expected for the most part. Sony Michel dudded 11 carries in his return, just 31 yards, no targets, no touchdowns. It's a bad matchup. He should be fine as a flex running back 2 going forward. This just wasn't a good matchup, so I'm not concerned about that in his first game back in a negative matchup. And then James White caught 5 of his 8 targets for just 31 yards. His worst outing in a while, but again, it was a bad matchup for running backs.
So yeah, Tom Brady is QB 12 right now, and he has not had his bye week.
Yep. So he's about.
So he's a high QB 2.
Yeah, you factor in the bye week, he's between 14 and 17 probably.
Yep.
As for the receiving game, Gordon and Edelman both had 12 targets, which is a great sign for Josh Gordon owners. He caught 4 for 81, so the efficiency is still kind of shit, but he's getting targeted deep, so that's good news for him. Was a plus matchup. Was my start of the week. Wasn't great, but he didn't kill you. Edelman, on the other hand, he's kind of what he was before the injury. 9 receptions, 104 yards. I don't know that I could have asked for more than what Edelman's giving you coming back off the knee injury and a suspension.
Yep. The only concern for him is how serious the ankle is, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, and it was apparently, from what I saw, it was apparently minor, and he's not expected to miss a lot of time, if any, was the exact wording of it.
Yep.
So we'll see what he does in practice, though. And then no tight end stepped up in Gronk's absence. Not that Gronk has been great this year anyway, but nobody stepped up either.
Yeah, I mean, if Gronk's missed, it's been nobody.
Yep. The Patriots' offense is out of sorts. It's not like last year's where they're out of sorts week 1 through 4 and then came back. They've just been out of sorts.
We've seen a few signs of life here or there, but for the most part, it's been kind of not right. They've
been winning, but it's not been dominating. The best it looked was in that Bears game.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of James White.
Yeah. I'll get to that question in a minute, Vivon. I'm trying to read notes, and I can't read a question right now. My eyes only go one direction. So let me get through this game, and then I'll catch you. As for the Titans, Mariota's in a tough matchup. He had 228 yards, 2 touchdowns, 21 rush yards. He's a week-to-week streamer candidate. I think that he's done well to get his production back up here these last couple weeks, and this was not a great matchup, and I thought that he did very well in this, given the circumstances.
Yeah, definitely.
Deion Lewis out-touched Derrick Henry 22-11. Henry annoyingly had the 2 touchdowns on 58 yards. A fluke, or should he be picked up if he was dropped?
I mean,
kind of a one good game situation.
Let's see what they have coming up, because schedule is going to dictate a lot of that at this late in the season, where you can start projecting things out.
Yep. By the way, just 68 total yards in this one for Deion Lewis.
On 22 touches, that's ugly.
Yep, but again, wasn't necessarily a fantastic situation, so he was a touchdown away from having a good day. Corey Davis, go ahead.
So Titans schedule going down the stretch: Colts, Texans, Jets, Jaguars, Giants, Redskins. So
Jets and Jags are really the only 2 that look decent for Derrick Henry. Giants is okay.
So might be worth a pickup, but I'm not super excited about it.
3 out of 6 weeks, and it's not great.
Yeah, and you got 2 tough ones to get through first.
Yep. Corey Davis, he broke out in a huge way. Caught 7 of his 10 for 125 yards and a touchdown. No other wide receiver was relevant in this one. Davis is a volume-based play week to week. If he can string some of these games together, though, I think he's a fantastic rest of season option. He's definitely somebody I want on my roster. And I think that going into next year, you could really see him take that step to wide receiver 1, which is where his talent's at. So you just want to see him string a couple of these together, I think, right now.
Yep, that's what we're hoping for, is just keep producing.
String a few together. Jonnu Smith, he had 3 targets to turn that into 45 yards and a touchdown. Don't go chasing those points. It's the first week he's been relevant, really, since Delaney Walker got hurt. But him, like Ricky Seals-Jones, is a tight end you keep an eye on, because if they can turn the corner in this back end of the season, they're the type of person that, given the state of tight ends, could put you over the top.
Well, and it's also back-to-back weeks where the Titans have scored 28-plus points. Keep an eye on this offense over the next week or 2, because if they continue being a productive offense, that might be time where you start grabbing pieces from it off the waiver wire to see if things start popping.
Yep. The defense, they did hold up pretty nicely in this one. Wasn't a great fantasy day, as there was no real turnovers forced, just 3 sacks. But they allowed just 14 points. So it's not really a ringing endorsement to start the Titans on your fantasy team, but it is a ringing endorsement to take notice of when your players are playing the Titans.
Yeah, absolutely. Their run defense already was no joke, and their pass defense is also starting to look pretty good.
Okay. Pavan's question now. Here's his running back situation. Running back 1's Mixon. Running back 2 is Yeldon, but now he needs another running back 2 because Yeldon's not necessarily viable. His waiver wire is Drake, Gore, Naeem Hines, Derrick Henry, Clement, Bibbs, Bernard, Spencer Ware, and then Penny and Richard. So let's narrow this down because there's a lot of names there. We just kind of talked Derrick Henry, Naeem Hines, Frank Gore, Kenyon Drake, Rashad Penny, probably the most and Jalen Richard would be the ones you're talking about there.
Yeah, I think Gore is my top pick.
Gore is my top pick out of that. And again, I'll get to him later, but he put up another game where he had double-digit touches, which is not great, but for running back 2, that'll get it done for you. And he has been efficient with his touches, more importantly. It's kind of like having Lamar Miller plus a bit because he is efficient with those 10 to 12 touches. So if I'm looking at that from my team, I'm going to say Frank Gore. He's not going to blow up, but he's going to give you some solid floor production week to week. And if he falls into the end zone, then you're happy with it.
Yeah, I think my order goes probably Gore, Henry, Drake, Bernard, Richard, Penny.
Yeah, I would probably have Richard and Bernard flip-flop because Richard, as long as the Raiders are playing from behind, and I expect them to be, is getting about 7 targets a game. It's like him and Jared Cook, weirdly.
Yeah.
And if this Jordy Nelson rumor decides to be true, then they're going to use him even more.
Assuming PPR, of course.
Yes, assuming PPR.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to the Falcons versus the Browns, where the Browns pull the upset, winning 28-16 at home. From the Falcons side, Matt Ryan was fine from a fantasy standpoint, but he threw the ball 52 fucking times, so you're hoping for a bit more than 330 yards and 2 touchdowns when they're playing from behind for almost this entire game.
Yeah, hold on. He followed that up and said that he's on bye this week, which is the Dolphins. So
yeah, Gore is on bye.
He is on bye, so plug in Jalen Richard.
Yeah, Richard or Henry probably.
Richard or Henry, but Henry's got tough matchups. So if it's any form of PPR, I'm going to plug in Jalen Richard for the bye week, and I'm going to make sure I get Frank Gore also to run out rest of the season.
Yeah, standard, I want Henry.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. Just Matt Ryan, good but disappointing considering the amount of passes he threw up for you. Run game needs to be lit on fire. Coleman was super disappointing. This was a much easier run defense than he played last week. Just 63 yards on 14 touches in this one, and Ito Smith did nothing with his 8 touches. So yeah, I just don't love anything about this right now. I'm not sure what's going on with the Falcons, but this game was a mass regression to the mean for them.
It was after maybe they came out flat. They were on bye last week, right?
I don't think
if
so.
I remember right.
No, they were on bye a few weeks ago.
Before, might have been a week before.
And then
it all runs together.
Yeah, the only pass catchers who really did much in this game was Jones and Hooper. Both had 11 targets, both scored, and they were the main focus of the offense. And after the last couple of weeks, is Hooper kind of becoming the second target on this team?
It's definitely interesting. You might be like 2B to whatever Sanu and Hooper is, or Sanu and Ridley are, is 2A. I don't know.
But yeah, he's had some nice games here. He's borderline every week starter. He's kind of in that same tier as guys like, I mean, probably even better than Njoku and Cook at this point, but kind of that same train of guys.
Pavon, if you're in standard, by the way, Derrick Henry and cross your fingers for the bye week fill in.
Hope he falls into the end zone.
Hope he falls into the end zone again, man.
Yeah, that's all I got on the Falcons, who were very disappointing in this one.
Yep, not a great week for them, and they looked like crap, honestly.
On to the Browns side, where Mayfield finally breaks the 2-touchdown ceiling. Nice for a nice fantasy day. 216 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 incompletions.
Yeah, very efficient. It was a good day for Baker, and it's still not yardage or elite level production, but he's solidly a streamer for sure.
Yeah, he's in that mid to low QB2 and matchup type play.
Yeah. If you had him in a bye week situation, you're not disappointed this week.
Yep. Nick Chubb, though, continues to absolutely blow up with another 2-touchdown game, over 200 total yards. You could have taken out his 92-yard touchdown run. It would have been a nice game.
Yeah. I looked at that and saw what his total yardage was. I'm like, that really didn't even matter that much. Nick Chubb is the real deal. We loved him coming out of college. He looks fantastic given the opportunity. And I think he's a guy you're talking about in the same vein as Oh crap! Like kind of around that Kareem Hunt level. Well, what Kareem Hunt was this year in draft, so early second, back into the first, probably.
I'm not sure he'll go quite that high, but he's probably maybe close to where CMC was getting drafted.
Yeah.
By the end of the year, he's probably mid to late second would be my guess.
Yeah, I would assume early second because of the way everything gets overhyped.
Okay, we'll see how it goes though. Duke Johnson.
Way.
Duke Johnson did get into the end zone on only 7 touches to kind of bail his day out. I expect this to be kind of lower though. They were ahead most of this game and we're just feeding Nick Chubb to ice the game away. His normal game I think will be closer to 10 to 12 touches.
Yep. Jimmy has a question whenever you get to the end of the
Sure,
Browns.
let's do that one right before we get to the Lions and Bears. Mayfield only threw 20 times. It was mostly to running backs as well, so all wide receivers and tight ends dudded here. Are you confidently starting Landry and Njoku with the new scheme?
No. I'm not confidently starting anything other than Chubb right now. Landry is kind of falling flat. I mean, the volume's still been there, but he's not getting the yardage or the touchdowns with it.
Or even the receptions. He only had 2 in this one.
Yeah. His targets really, and Njoku really isn't either. So I don't know what's up with this receiving core because Mayfield is still producing, but it's more of like almost a Blake Bortles type of production where things are being spread out and spread around and no receivers necessarily benefiting from all of it.
Yeah, literally the only incompletions that Mayfield had were targets to Landry this week.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm not sure what quite is going on there, but
they're not on the same page.
Yeah, definitely not on the same page. All right, let's move on. Jimmy has a question. He wants to know: does Robert Woods' value go up with Cup out this week
or rest of season? Yeah, it does. It
only slightly though. You can't rise much. He's a borderline wide receiver 1 already.
Yep, I think the guys that really benefit from that, Josh Reynolds, first off, is the name to know there, and the guy to stash with Cup out rest of season. You'll probably see Woods, I would guess, slide to the slot, and Reynolds play outside, but you'll see some mix with those 3. He's the 3rd wide receiver, and then the other thing you want to watch is the tight ends, but not really, because that volume is probably going to be spread between Higbee and Everett.
Yep, but it's if one of the 2 takes a lead, or if you're in a super deep league and you're desperate for tight end, stashing one may be a good call.
But yeah, I think it's a slight boost to 3 or 4 guys and makes Josh Reynolds relevant. I don't think it's a major boost for Woods, but it is a slight boost.
I mean, maybe adds a target or 2 a game to what you see out of him.
Yep.
All right, let's wrap up the noon games here with Lions going into Chicago to play the Bears. Bears win 34-22, and it wasn't even really that close.
I'll go ahead and take it.
All right.
Mind, I watched it. I'll take it. So garbage time Stafford showed up, 25-42, 274, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. He took 6 sacks, and it was garbage time. He didn't do anything until the end of this game. It wasn't even really that close. The final score would lead you to suggest. It was 34-16 going into the last half of the fourth quarter. Doesn't look great for Stafford moving forward without Golden Tate there. The offense is out of sorts. So that's it for Stafford.
Mm-hmm.
Darion Johnson didn't care about a bad matchup. Finished with 20 touches, 89 yards, 2 touchdowns. Even with Theo Riddick seeing similar volume in passing work, Johnson got it done. And that is a very good call out because this was a bad matchup for Johnson. And at times it really looked like it. And then they kind of got him going late in the second quarter when he flipped into the end zone. And then, second half, when the Bears were playing soft, really with a lead, he kind of got it going some. But he's somebody you can confidently run out there week to week, I think, at this point.
Yep. Not a great schedule down the stretch, though, unfortunately for him. He gets the Panthers, Bears, Rams, good matchup against the Cardinals, then Bills, Vikings to wrap up the season.
Yep. So it's not fantastic, but if he gets the volume and can do this, or if the Lions are behind and they get soft coverage, then you're probably okay. He does have some insulated volume with his receiving work also. And Blunt's pretty much dead, so. Dan says, my bad on Marvin Jones. He was wrong about that. 3 for 55 on 6 targets. Galladay found pay dirt, though. 6 for 78 and 1 on 13 targets. Says Galladay's clearly looking like Stafford's number 1 target. wants to know thoughts on these two moving forward, that we called them sell candidates. Are we still feeling the same way?
I mean, a lot of leagues are past the trade deadline, so they can't really even be sell candidates at this point. I mean, Galladay's going to easily be the one as long as Jones is out. I don't know what the splits were before and after Jones's knee injury.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think they were running pretty even up until that point, and then Galladay obviously just boomed at that point.
Yep, and it was, again, mostly second half production. Neither one of those two did much until the Lions were firmly down. You got garbage time offensive production here.
Yep. Garbage time counts for fantasy.
It does. We said it a lot. I didn't know it was going to go full garbage time. I expected it to be closer than that, but the Bears' offense is for real. More on that later. The tight ends, though, for the Lions, not to be worried about, and that's it for them.
All right.
And I like this note to lead in. I did not know this. So for the Bears, can you guess who the quarterback one is over the past 6 weeks? Because it's not Mahomes, Breeze, or Rodgers. It's Trubisky. Finished 23 of 30 for 355 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. Added 18 rushing yards and a rush TD. So the Vikings, Lions, Giants for his next 3 matchups. Vikings game will be a huge test for him. That's absolutely right. But good matchups against the Lions and Giants coming up, and a great playoff schedule. I think Mitch Trubisky is somebody that you own. He's taken that Jared Goff step.
Yeah, he definitely has this. And as we talked about earlier, that rushing floor is huge for him because it's bailed him out in a few games where the passing was not there.
It really has, and even then, I think 3 of the last 4 or 4 of the last 5, the passing has been there for him. So he's been exceptional. I think he had that 6 touchdown game, and it's like the confidence clicked, and he's been good ever since.
Yep.
Jordan Howard came back down to earth, 11 carries, 21 yards. He caught his lone target for 11 yards. He did not have a good game at all. Cohen wasn't much better production-wise, but he got the rushing TD. He did have 6 catches to help salvage his day. Who's the running back here you want moving forward? It's Tariq Cohen for me.
Yeah, it's not even a question. I definitely want Cohen. I wouldn't mind still owning Howard, but I'm not. If I get to pick again, I'm taking Cohen.
Yep. Exactly. And if Howard is Frank Gore pretty much at this point. I mean, the efficiency wasn't there this week, but he's getting about the same touch volume. That's the best you can hope for.
Yep.
With the running game struggling to produce, the passing game was good. Allen Robinson proved Dan all sorts of wrong. 6 for 133 and 2 touchdowns on 8 targets. He had an absolute blow up. It was by far the best game as a Bear. I'm happy to see him get back to producing those numbers, and Dan said he was too, but I definitely am as a Bears fan. And Anthony Miller had a great game, 5 for 122 and 1 on 6 targets. Looks to have surpassed Taylor Gabriel, which is true. Gabriel has not had a good game in a couple of weeks. Anthony Miller looked great, especially in that touchdown run. He shedded a tackle on the way downfield. And if he can get it going in the second half and be kind of a breakout candidate there, watch out for this Bears offense.
Yeah, Miller's absolutely supplanted Gabriel, and Miller should be added, and Gabriel should be dropped.
Miller should absolutely be added. Troy Burton, floor day, minus a touchdown, 4 for 40 on 4 targets. That's a good day for a tight end.
He got you 2-point conversion to bump you a little bit too.
Yep. And then garbage time scoring didn't help the Bears. That's true, but they did have 2 picks, another 6 sacks, and a fumble recovery, so they're still perfectly fine.
Yeah, I think it was 14 points in normal scoring.
And before we beer review, Pavon needs some wide receiver help. His wide receiver 1 is Hopkins, 2 is Sutton. If you need to stash another wide receiver, his waiver wires is Funchess, Corey Davis, Sterling Shepard, Tyrell Williams, Kenny Stills, Reynolds, Doxson, Harris, Moncrief. There's one name that jumps out there to me that I'm absolutely throwing on my team. And I will start over Sutton week to week.
Yeah, it's. He said it's standard scoring, but I'm assuming you're going Davis.
I'm still going Davis. It doesn't matter if it's standard scoring or not. Davis is a red zone threat.
How are so many of those guys available?
Yeah, that's true. I don't know what league depth is, but I'm still going Corey Davis there.
Yeah, I think my order goes Davis. Shepard, and then maybe Funchess.
Yeah, I think I would have Funchess and Shepard flipped, and then Tyrell Williams would be up there too.
Along with Reynolds with the injury flip change there.
Yeah, Williams with the touchdown upside, but it's Corey Davis. He's a wide receiver 1 on his team. He gets the volume. He gets looked for in the red zone, so that's a pretty easy call for me on that one. That was way easier than the running back one.
Yeah. All right. All set for a beer review?
Yep.
Beer review.
Breaking news.
Yeah.
Bills just released quarterback Nathan Peterman.
Nice. Matt Barkley just supplanted him as the quarterback 3, 2?
2, I guess.
Eric Anderson's still there. I guess he's the 2.
I assume he'd be over Anderson. All right.
Yeah. He played well enough to do it, so Peterman's a free agent.
So what'd you think of
probably done.
What'd you think of Virtue Cider's Michigan Brut?
My first thought when I took it was, is this a champagne in a can? Because it finished pretty dry and didn't really have a whole lot of other like front end flavor. It was sweet, but it finished dry. But the more I drink it, the more I get a bit of apple. I definitely get some pear. I think I get a little bit of pear off of it too. And it's finishing crisp and not quite as dry. It's one of those things where the first time we take a sip of a beer, we get one thing, and the more we drink it, more flavors start to come out. It's a very solid, refreshing cider. Definitely bonfire levels or late summer.
Yeah, very definitely leans into the farmhouse style. I get a little bit of the barrel aged aspect, which I think might be the champagne dryness that you're referring to there.
It's the same oakiness that you finish with a lot of wines and stuff. So yeah, there's a bit of definite oak there.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of the dryness you're getting. This is probably the mellowest of the 3 ciders I've had on. The other 2 are much more flavor intense. This one's this is more of a sessionable one, and I actually think it's the highest alcohol percent too. So if you're looking to get fucked up on a cider, this might be a good option for you.
It doesn't taste like it, that's for sure.
Yeah, it comes in almost 7%.
Nice.
All right. Well, after the beer review, we got a trifecta of Hopper games here. I think so.
Everybody get excited.
I think these first 2 though can go pretty quick. So let's kick us off first with Dolphins versus the Packers. Packers win 31-12, with the Dolphins getting 4 field goals.
Yep, this one was pretty easy. Osweiler's terrible. Don't do it. Drake hurt his shoulder, but he did see just 8 carries for 27 yards and 2 receptions. Frank Gore, in Drake's absence, continues to do well, though. He had 13 carries, put up 90 yards on those, did add 2 receptions. He's kind of a weekly flex play, running back to you can grab off your waiver wire. He's been good for a couple of weeks now on that type of volume. He's just been hyper efficient. Touchdowns aren't necessarily there, but the yardage definitely is. So he's got about a 10-point floor, I think.
Yep.
As for the wide receivers, Parker and Amendola both had double-digit targets. While still saw just 3, you can go ahead and jettison him. That was a terrible call on my part this week. Parker only snagged 5 on his 11 for 43 yards. Amendola did slightly better with the 72-yard day. He's kind of a bench stash in the same, probably above the level of Willie Snead and Adam Humphries, but in that same tier. Amendola, not Parker. Mm-hmm. And the tight ends are worth about as much as Kalen Ballage, whose name showed up in the box score and just pissed me off. Nothing, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for the Dolphins.
Okay, on to the Packers, which I assume are a little more interesting.
Only slightly. Rodgers had just 28 pass attempts because he didn't have to have more than that. 199 yards, 2 touchdowns. Game script just took the ball out of his hands. Aaron Jones still only managed to have 15 carries. I don't know why Jamal Williams is still a thing, even though he only had 3 touches, so he's almost not a thing. Just a little bit more. Back to Jones, though. He took those carries for 145 yards and 2 touchdowns. As long as 67, but even without that, still a solid day, a la Nick Chubb. If you could get McCarthy to commit to 18 to 20 touches a game for Aaron Jones, you're more than happy with him as a high end too. But that's not happening. As for the wide receivers, Devontae Adams, Marquez Valdez-Scantling held down the 1 and 2 roles easily. They both had 7 targets. They went for 57 and 44 yards respectively, but Adams had the 2 touchdowns. MVS did have the higher efficiency day, though, snagging 6 of his 7. So he didn't kill you completely. It just wasn't the day you were hoping for. His game script threw that off. Adams' touchdown saved him. And then Graham is boom bust. He only had 1 target, 1 reception for 14 yards. It was game script again. There just wasn't a ton of throwing that had to happen here.
Yep.
I don't expect that to be the case every week for the Packers, but it definitely wasn't this one. It was a mismatch.
Yeah, they definitely have some tougher matchups down the stretch. Specifically next week, I believe, or 2 weeks. They get the Seattle next week and the Vikings the week after that.
Yep. So those should definitely require a little bit more throwing, and I want to start Jimmy Graham, especially in the revenge game.
That'll be fun.
It will be. All right. Chargers Raiders. Want to lead me in for that?
Yep, Chargers win this one 20-6. Raiders had a little bit of offensive production in terms of yards, but could not get the scoring together, and Chargers just did not have to keep their foot on the gas pedal.
Nope. It was exactly as we predicted, though. This is the second week in a row where we've seen a game like this and been, hey, this is how it's going to play out, and it's exactly how it played out. Rivers threw just 26 times, 223 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, just 1 sack. You can't complain about an expected result. He was a high-end streamer. That's what we thought he was going to be this week. Melvin Gordon continues to light the world on fire. Just 18 carries in this one, but 93 yards on the ground. He did have another 6 targets, caught 5 for 72, and a receiving touchdown. So he had a great game, as is expected from him at this point. Eckler just 3 touches, so that didn't necessarily play out like I thought. So hopefully you didn't take it to heart when I said he was an okay flex play.
Yeah, that hurt me in a league.
Yeah, sorry about that. You can only do what the numbers say, but yeah, that didn't pan out. Keenan Allen, as expected, was the only relevant wide receiver in this one. 9 targets, caught 6, 57 yards, did have a touchdown, though, which saved him. Tyrell Williams had the second most targets at 6, but it turned him into just 46 yards. Mike Williams, not used at all. He's droppable at this point, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yep. Tight ends, still not relevant for the Chargers. And then on to the Raiders. Derek Carr's terrible, 243 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Martin hasn't been horrible, but because of this offense, it hasn't been great. He had another 94 scrimmage yards. He's been pretty efficient. It's a rushing touchdown away from making people happy, but ultimately 94 scrimmage yards with no touchdowns is just flex value at best.
I mean, if you're flexing him, you're not too upset with it. If I'd kept him in instead of benching him in a few places, I would have been happier than I ended up being.
Yep. Jalen Richard caught 5 of 6 for 52 yards. So in full PPR, he's a fine flex consideration. Half PPR and below, though, probably not necessarily worth it.
Mm-hmm.
No wide receiver was relevant in this one. Brandon LaFell led them with 6 targets for 47 yards. Maybe Amari Cooper was not the problem here.
Yeah, I don't think Amari Cooper was ever the problem.
I don't think so either. Jared Cook had 9 targets, which is insane for tight ends, but unfortunately his quarterback sucks, so he still just turned that into 4 receptions and 52 yards. And
I mean, you'll take it.
For a tight end, you'll definitely take it, but if you're targeting the tight end 9 times, you got some serious receiver problems, amongst other things.
All right, that wrap up that game?
Yep, that's it.
All right, last Hopper game, so you can kind of clear your throat here and get some water. Seahawks versus the Rams. Rams 36, Seahawks 31 in a shootout, but there is some sad news that associates this particular one.
Can I get a moment of silence, please?
I'll do better than a moment of silence.
We're going to start with the Seahawks here. Russell Wilson saved his day. This is not what I'm sad about. I'm not sad about anything on the Seahawks. Well, Rashad Penny. That deserves some Titanic music.
That he showed up.
Yeah, that he showed up. Russell Wilson saved his day with touchdowns. He threw for 3 of them. Only 26 attempts, so he completed 17, had 92 rushing yards. So that's about what you can expect. I'll get you in a second, Pavon. Sorry, chat threw me off. Rashad Penny, of all people, Rashad Penny, 12 carries, 107 yards, and a touchdown. Proving the Rams defense is terrible, not that Rashad Penny is a good running back. Mike Davis was 11 for 58. He got 4 passes for 22 and a touchdown. I think the backfield just got messy again. We talked about this earlier, but both of those guys producing with Chris Carson being efficient doesn't usually equal good things for being able to predict what's going to happen.
Yeah, trying to speculate Thursday night when Carson's supposed to be back is going to be interesting.
It's going to be terrible. Tyler Lockett had another solid game. He only had 6 targets, but he did catch 5 for 67 and a touchdown for his second good game of the year against the Rams. Baldwin caught all 5 of his, but just 39 yards. I don't know if it's the offense, his age, the knee injury, but he's just not doing it this year.
Yeah, he's a big bucket of meh all season.
Yeah. Speaking of buckets of meh, Nick Vannett, 2 targets, but he caught a touchdown. So he's an emergency
tight end 1.
Yeah, it is. That's it. But he's an emergency play at best. And then that's it for the Seahawks, by the way. Defense was dog shit in this. As expected, the Rams are good. Pavon's follow-up, though, he missed Amari Cooper on his waiver wire. Does Amari Cooper trump Corey Davis?
I responded in chat, but I said no. I would take Davis over Cooper, but I would try to grab both Davis and Cooper.
Yeah, if they're both out there, I don't know what you got on your bench, but there's the possibility we could be wrong, and I think both of those guys are worth starting.
Yeah, especially with the target volume they're seeing.
Or worth owning, let's put it that way. But I do think Corey Davis trumps Cooper because the Titans do have a relatively more throwing-based offense, which is really weird to say.
Let's go with robust offense.
Robust. That's a good one for it, too. It's weird to say, but Dallas is probably the only person the Titans throw more than.
All right.
Anyway, on to the Rams. Jared Goff, 29 of 39, 318, 2 was another good game. And then he shot his shot on Twitter at Halle Berry. Don't know if you saw that or not, but it was pretty epic.
Wait, what happened?
So during the game, Jared Goff used Halle Berry as an audible, right?
Okay.
And some account tweeted it out, and Halle Berry retweeted it and added Jared Goff and the Rams and said, "What is Halle Berry?" And Jared Goff responded and said, "Only our favorite play ever." And then Todd Gurley called him a thought.
All right. Well, continue with the Rams.
But Jared Goff shooting a shot at Halle Berry. Got to respect that. Todd Gurley, 15 for 120 and a touchdown, 3 receptions for 40 yards. No more discussion needed on him. Woods had just 5 targets. He caught 4 of them for 89 yards. Cooks led all wide receivers with 12, snagging 10 of those for 100 yards. No touchdowns for either guy. Cooper Kupp had 8 targets before he tore his ACL, just 5 for 39. And that really hurts my heart. Not the stat line, but the ACL there. Woods and Cooks do get obvious bumps here, but as we talked about earlier, it's not by a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then both tight ends had the touchdowns here. Higbee had 3 targets. Everett had 2. Neither guy's a go-to, but it's going to be interesting to see if one steps up. I think this is more of what you expect as you get, this is a team where the tight ends normally only got maybe 2 to 3 targets a game. They step up and pick up 5. You could see those tight ends splitting 5 to 6 targets a game, and the rest of it getting divided between, Reynolds and Woods and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't expect Kupp's injury to be a giant bump for any one person. I expect it to make things a little bit more interesting as far as putting some people on the fringe.
Agreed.
That was all I had for that. The defense, as I mentioned earlier, are still kind of crappy.
Yeah, for both teams didn't want to start a defense in this game for either team.
Nope, good offenses trump good defenses most of the time.
All right, let's get to the Sunday night game and put a bow on this. Cowboys versus the Eagles. Cowboys win 27-20, and the Eagles failed me so many ways in this matchup. I needed way more help from their defense. On the Cowboys side, another 270-plus yard game for Prescott. He seems to be benefiting from the addition of Cooper these last 2 weeks. 18 targets for Cooper in the last 2 games, so he's definitely taken over as the number 1 wide receiver. But the big call out is Elliott putting on a fucking show against the toughest matchup of the season on the road in Philly. 187 total yards, 2 touchdowns on 25 touches, and he made it look easy, and it could have been an even bigger day for him.
Yeah, he had an exceptional day. It's really what you wanted from Zeke week in and week out, and then he comes out and does it in a divisional matchup and against a really tough run defense. So it's good to see, and you just hope that the addition of Amari Cooper is opening things up.
Yep, and then Cooper looks like he's going to be a high wide receiver 3 with the volume he's getting. He actually had a shot at probably about a 50-yard touchdown that Dak just overthrew him on, where he beat a guy on a streak. But other than that, he managed to put up 75 yards on 6 catches with 10 targets. So still a pretty solid day overall, even in half or full point PPR. No other receiver saw more than 5 targets, and that was Beasley. So Beasley's kind of a fringe desperation flex play, and then Hearns and Gallup are droppable at this point.
Yeah, Gallup's a guy that he's interesting. Not in redraft, but from a dynasty perspective, I still like him a decent amount.
He's flashed. I like him, but I don't think he's got any value in redraft.
I don't think he has redraft value right now either. He's a guy that we're going to be talking about mid next year as a waiver wire pickup that I want stashed in dynasty if I'm rebuilding, though.
And the defense for the Cowboys continues to play pretty well, only allowing 20 points, had a couple sacks, had a pick. They're not amazing, but they're a solid streaming candidate in plus matchups.
Yep.
Wentz gave you a floor day, but you're hoping for more in this matchup. 360 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick on 44 attempts. So it was basically all through Zach Ertz, too, who had 16 fucking targets in this game on his way to a 14 reception, 145-yard, 2-touchdown performance. 40 points in full point PPR.
It's freaking wild.
So if you ran into that, I'm really, really, really sorry about your loss. And if anyone managed to survive that, I want to see a tweet of that stat line. For the running game, though, going back to that real quick, Adams continues to look like the best running back, 7 carries for 47 yards. Peterson says he's going to get a workload increase going forward. Clement and Smallwood are basically doing nothing and fully droppable. Adams is the back I want to own going forward.
Yep.
And then
I do own him. I picked him up preemptively.
I picked him up in a few places as well, and I'm looking forward to maybe trotting him out here shortly.
Yep.
Tate's on at 20% of snaps in this game. I don't know why they're easing in a guy they spent a 3rd-round pick on for an 8-game rental, so unless they're planning on extending him, I'm not really sure what's happening there. And then Aguilar and Jeffrey both saw 7+ targets. They should continue to be started going forward, even though Jeffrey wasn't great in this matchup. And then with the injury, who I'm blanking for a second. Which player there's tore his ACL?
For the Eagles?
They lost the cornerback, and I'm forgetting who it was.
I don't remember.
But they lost another cornerback. They're effectively down to their number 4 guy at this point as their number 1 corner. So their defense is starting to fall apart a little bit. They go to New Orleans next week. Breeze is going to pick them apart. So do not consider starting the Eagles defense at any point in the near future. All right. For injuries, we're going to quick run through this. I'm just going to even skip the drops just to wrap this up. We've gone too long. Big ones all at the wide receiver position. Cooper Kupp, ACL, as mentioned, he is done for the year and safely droppable in non-keeper formats. Julian Edelman has an ankle injury. It is not expected to be major.
Yep. It was, from what I saw, he may miss some time, but not a whole lot of time.
They're going to the bye week, which may save him from missing any time. Martavis Bryant with a PCL injury. He's week to week. It may be torn.
Yeah. Not that I really care about Martavis Bryant, but you get it.
Marvin Jones, knee, bone bruise. He is week to week.
Yep. Just if he's gone, it's Kenny Galladay. That's the only thing that they've got there. There's nobody behind them. TJ Jones, I guess, would be viable, but
in really deep leagues, yeah. Otherwise,
in really deep leagues, it's going to be mostly Galladay.
Probably bump to Theo Riddick, who sees even more routes than he's already seeing.
Right.
And then Devontae Parker, AC joint. He's week to week as well.
Yep.
All right. For some waiver ads here, we've got quarterbacks. Marcus Mariota and Dak Prescott are both worth taking a look at.
I agree. Dak Prescott, ever since the Amari Cooper ad, has really stepped his game up. And over the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think that Marcus Mariota has been a lot better than what he had been probably the last year and a half.
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to see some progress out of that particular, out of both passers, because I was hoping for more out of him this season. Mariota especially was one I had much higher expectations for, and he's starting to trend in the right direction at least. Yep. At running back, Frank Gore, Giovanni Bernard, and Elijah McGuire are the names I highlighted here as names who are generally available. Is there anybody you think I missed there, Hopper?
No, Frank Gore is the one that I've been highlighting all show, and I think he's the one to know and probably the most viable one on your waiver wire with the touch volume he's been getting, and we may actually be late to that party.
Yeah, he's still under 50% owned, though, so if he's available for you, go ahead and grab him.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a party with cranberry juice and Ritz, and you're going to bed at 9 o'clock, but it's a party nonetheless.
Yep. For the wide receivers, I think the biggest name on that I had on the list here is definitely Anthony Miller, who's trending in the right direction on an offense that is definitely trending upward. So I think he's the main one I'm adding. Other ones to note, though, is Josh Reynolds, Maurice Harris, and John Ross as all names that are going to see decent target volume going forward.
Yeah, the Miller is the biggest call out there, though. And then we'll talk more on some of these injuries later as we find out what they are. Probably Wednesday's episode.
All right. For tight ends, Chris Herndon is still continuing to be under 50% owned somehow, so go out and grab him if you need a tight end, because he's one of the few that's been consistently doing something lately. Yeah. And then
he's been better than I thought he would be. I thought that he would be a 1-year project, and then they got cut ASJ, and here we are.
And then Everett and Higbee for the Rams with the Kupp injury. They've been trending upward in that offense. It's tough to know who's going to do stuff. Both scored in this last week's game. after the cup injury as well. So keep an eye on both these guys, and both are worth an add in deeper formats.
Yeah, they're pretty much desperation plays, though, at this point.
Yeah, until we know more, it's tough to play either one.
Nick Vanette, he's done things the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, true, technically.
He's got a touchdown, and he had some decent volume. So I'm just saying, we're talking dart throws.
For defenses, some names I like for next week who may be available. Cardinals host the Raiders, so that's a great start. Panthers at the Lions, with their pass rush against the Lions' faltering offensive line is a good matchup. Steelers at the Jaguars have been trending in the right direction, and they may be able to just run train on the Jaguars this week. And then if the Chargers are available, I love them against the Broncos this week.
Yeah, I do too. Now, Steelers-Jaguars could be a trap game, though. I will say that because the Jaguars seem to come to play against the Steelers.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that is, but the numbers say it should be good.
Yep.
All right, for some guys you can cut, Carlos Hyde, he's the number 3 on that offense, so even if Fournette got hurt again, he's still second fiddle to Yeldon. I don't know why they traded for him.
I don't know why they did either. That made no sense unless it's just an insurance policy. I don't know if they weren't confident in Fournette's hamstring or what, and they weren't confident in Yeldon, so they wanted an insurance policy.
Yep. Chris Thompson continues to not recover. I think he is cuttable at this point on a meh offense anyway.
Yeah, and it sucks because when he's healthy, he's been good, but he hasn't been healthy all season. It's just been one nagging thing after another for Chris Thompson.
Yep. And we didn't talk about this all show, but if Le'Veon Bell doesn't show up at 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, you can cut him.
He's done. Yeah, you can cut him. He will not play this year if he's not there by 4 p.m. tomorrow.
So yeah, get your sleeper bot installed, and if you own him and he's has not shown up by 4 p.m. Eastern, just cut him before waivers even run.
Follow at ViewFieldFF on Twitter. Make sure you're not in a keeper format.
Yes, of course. Redraft format.
I'm not saying. Do not cut them in keepers.
Whenever we're talking cuts, we are strictly speaking redraft. If you have keeper cut questions, tweet at us directly. Wide receivers, Cooper Kupp, ACL done for the year. You can cut him. Traquan Smith with back-to-back duds, I think, is very cuttable at this point, even though the hype built up on him.
Yeah, he's not taking the step that
they're just not throwing to other receivers besides Michael Thomas.
No, well, you don't have to, and Michael Thomas can get open.
Yep. Then Jordy Nelson with the retirement rumors and just how bad that offense is. You don't need to own any Raider players outside of Richard and Martin. That's the only two that are, and Cook. Yeah. Those are the three.
Yep. Andy's got a knee injury. Andy might be retiring, and even if not, he was outperformed the last 2 weeks by Bryant and LaFell. So,
and then Taylor Gabriel is also a cut.
Yep.
A couple defenses
weeks of goodness.
Couple defenses that were widely owned that if you're only carrying one, you can safely cut and grab somebody else. Chiefs have the Rams next week, and the Rams have the Chiefs next week. I don't want any part of either defense in that game.
Is that how that works? They play each other at the same time?
Yes. In Mexico City, no less.
Yeah, do you see the condition of that field?
It's going to be ugly.
Yeah. It's either that.
Cup preemptively tore his ACL before having to play on that shit.
Right, where he probably would have torn it anyway. It's either they're going on that crap or they're going to resod it, and it's going to be loose as shit.
Yep. And then Eagles go to New Orleans to play the Saints, as I mentioned before. You can safely cut them if you're holding one defense.
Yeah, their secondary has been too dog shit for the pass rush to make up for it.
All right, so that puts a bow on Monday's episode. Sorry for a little bit long one here. We got a little more discussion-y than I was even intending, but hopefully you guys enjoyed the episode. Thank you for all the listener questions for people who jumped on the episode. Reminder, you can subscribe to the show at Beerfield Fantasy Football on YouTube if you want to ask live questions on air. If you'd rather tweet at us after the show to get your questions answered, it is at BeerfieldFF, and just tweet at us. DMs I'm not quite as good at responding to as I am direct tweets. You can follow us individually. Dan Thury, you missed the episode, is at ThuryBFF. Christopher Hopper is in St. Louis.
At Hot BFF with 2 P's.
And I am at Nick Sparts. I'm still deciding what we're going to do Wednesday's episode. We'll have an idea of that tomorrow so I can get it to the guys, and we'll get you that dropped on Wednesday, same time, same place. Friday, of course, is our weekly preview. Sunday, we'll be going ahead and doing our preview at 10:30 in the morning, answering all your Q&A questions.
Week 11.
Week 11. Hope you guys are getting ready for the final stretch here, last 3 to 4 weeks of the regular season, and we'll catch you guys next time on Beerfield Fantasy Football.
See ya.
Later.